American tennis was booming throughout the 1980s and 90s, with former greats of the likes of John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors paving the path for stars such as Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi, and Jim Courier, among others, to thrust professional tennis truly into the American public spotlight.
Get comfortable, because we could be here a while.
These are the images of a rebel.
Image is everything.
Eos Rebel from Canada.
As the 21st century loomed, many looked toward the younger generation to continue the elm of success their elders had forged, initially finding hope within a young Nebraskan.
And now 3 championship points for 21-year-old Andy Roddick, the #1 junior in the world 3 years ago, on the verge of winning the U.S. Open. And he's done it! Grand Slam #1.
Andy Roddick, his first Grand Slam title as the U.S. Open champion.
Although Andy Roddick's 2003 win at the U.S. Open solidified his status as a great player, major success against the rising elite would elude him for the remainder of his career, as the European tennis scene would begin to take the professional tennis world.
Heartbreak for Andy Roddick.
Desperate for the next big thing, America looked on with scorn as the wait for their future home soil champion would begin. That champion, however, would appear to be right around the corner.
Now we've discovered another youngster who we think you're going to be hearing a lot more about in the future. Meet Donald Young.
Enter Donald Young, the kid from Atlanta with unlimited promise. Full-time coached by his parents, Donald Sr. and Ilona, comparisons to the Williams sisters, then already famous major champions, were quickly being drawn. By age 10, he was already hitting tennis balls with McEnroe, a fellow lefty who said about the child, "He's the first person I've seen with hands like me." To say his junior tournament results were amazing would be an understatement. At 15 years old, he became the youngest male player to ever win a Grand Slam junior title and the youngest ever world-ranked #1 tennis player on the ITF Junior Ranking Board. That same year, Donald was featured in Newsweek's Who's Next list of up-and-coming stars, alongside another familiar face. Around this time, Donald turned professional. Armed with lucrative endorsement deals with Head Tennis and Nike, the Phenom was ready to take the tennis world by storm. Or so he hoped.
Climbing. The youngster Donald Young won the first set against Novak Djokovic, and then everything went wrong.
Donald's first few years of professional tennis on the main stage were abysmal, to put it lightly. Armed by high-powered sports management giant IMG, who aided in securing him wildcard entries into premier events, Donald posted a 0-10 record over the course of 2005 to 2006, hardly putting up a contest to the opponents many times twice his age. At one event, he lost by a scoreline of 0-6, 0-6 to Argentinian veteran Carlos Berlocq, who then went on to lose by the same scoreline to American James Blake in the very next round. Critics argued at the time that Young was setting himself up for failure at these high-level events. In ITF and ATP Challenger events, essentially the AA and AAA equivalents of professional tennis, Donald fared better, earning a handful of quarterfinal and semifinal appearances. It was at this point that the 16-year-old stepped away from the spotlight and large prize pools of premier events to focus on minor league tournaments. For those who don't know, ITF tournaments, the AA tennis equivalent, are typically held at public parks, small tennis clubs, and far, far away from the glamorous locations of Monte Carlo, Rome, and New York City. Where 1 or 2 spectators are considered average, and a 2007 event champion prize is only $900, Donald was surely not in Kansas anymore, especially compared to the $16,500 first-round loser prize given to him just a year earlier at the US Open. Thankfully for Donald, though, the approach paid off. By 2007 year end, the young man had reached the finals of 7 Challenger and Futures events, and posted 2 wins on the main tour, one at the Grand Slam level. As he was still underage, he was still allowed entry into junior level events, winning Junior Wimbledon in 2007, showing that his game was still at a respectable level. In 1 year, Donald managed to push his rankings up from a dismal 491st in the world to a very respectable 98th, a ridiculous jump of 393 ranking spots, and a coveted spot as the youngest within the best 100 players in the world. The next few years would prove challenging for Young. Although he continued his deep runs into challenger-level tournaments, the main events throughout the year became a point of frustration due to his failure to string together 2 match wins in a row on any consistent basis. His ranking fluctuated between 100 to 200 in the world, and had trouble finding the key to further success. As this was happening, the world began to feign interest in the now former Prodigy, and watched as many of his peers during Young's junior days began taking hold of the ATP Tour.
United States Open champion Juan Martín del Potro.
Although the year started off without much fanfare, 2011 would prove to be the year of Donald Young. Along with his usual strong showing at the challenger level, Donald would further boost his ranking by consistently qualifying for tour level events. In one of the most prestigious tournaments of the year, Donald defeated world number 5 Andy Murray in straight sets in the second round of Indian Wells in Palm Springs, California. Gone were the days of numerous wildcard entries. Donald was proving himself to be a viable opponent to many within the top 100. His breakthrough event came at the 2011 Legg Mason Classic in Washington, D.C., a 500-level event. With a ranking of 128th in the world, Donald reached the semifinals, taking out multiple opponents ranked 100 spots or more above him along the way. Although a major milestone, nothing would prepare him for the fanfare generated by that year's 4th Grand Slam event, the US Open in New York City, the most premier tennis event in the world. Success at any of the year's 4 Grand Slams brings an abundance of prize money and ranking points. With a decisive first-round win over Slovakian Lukas Lacko, Donald then set his sights to one of his highest-billed matchups of the year, a date with Roger Federer's Swiss compatriot Stan Wawrinka, himself an Olympic gold medal champion. Having won the 250 Chennai Open along with his quarterfinal appearance at the Australian Open earlier in the year, there was little doubt in many people's minds what the result would be. Donald, however, had other plans. Coming off this momentous 5-set thriller, Young followed this victory up with a stunning straight-set victory over 24th-ranked Argentinian Juan Ignacio Chela. New York was at a fever pitch for Donald, although he would soon bow out to Andy Murray in the 4th round. Despite the drubbing, Donald would follow his New York result up with a huge showing at the 250 Thailand Open, making his very first ATP Tour final, though once again losing to Andy Murray in less than stellar fashion. After rounding out the year with several more wins, Donald found his ranking had ballooned from 129 at the beginning of the year to 40, echoing his 2007 minor league ranking boost. It would appear Donald Young had finally become a force to reckon with, silencing many of his doubters and living up to the hype thrust upon him so many years earlier. In fact, 2012 would turn out to be the best year of his career, finally cracking the top 10 and winning his first ever tour-level event among many other big wins over the likes of Roger Federer and... I'm sorry, I had to do it. Here's what really happened. The year started off unassuming enough, with a few wins to push Donald to his highest ever ATP ranking of 38 in the world by late February. By February 2012, however, the nightmare began. Over the next 6 months, Donald would start losing. He wasn't losing sporadically, or even most of the time. No, he lost every single match he played for 6 straight months, essentially most of the tennis calendar year. In fact, at 17 straight losses, he had almost lost the most matches in a row in ATP history, second only to American Vince Badia's legendary losing streak of 21 matches in a row in 1999-2000. In his 18th match, Donald actually had to come back from a set down to end the losing streak by defeating Argentina's Leonardo Mayer in 3 sets. The reason this was allowed to happen was because Donald's ranking had gotten so high he could afford to lose and lose at tour-level events as his ranking slowly plummeted, and not have to resort to returning to the challenger-level minor league events. By year end, his ranking had crumbled all the way down to 190 in the world. As he did earlier in his career, Donald once again took a step back from the limelight and mainly played challenger-level tournaments throughout 2013, with generally good results as the outcome. At the US Open, fans were dismayed and critics smug at the determination that Donald would have to win 3 qualifying matches to enter the tournament despite his 4th round appearance 2 years earlier. Despite this, he actually proceeded to win all qualifying matches and absolutely destroyed 46th ranked Martin Klizan of Slovakia 6-1, 6-0, 6-1 in the first round. He bowed out to German Florian Mayer in the second round, but Donald was solidifying his status as a New York favorite. The next few years would see Donald return to form, with further Challenger tournament wins and deeper runs in main tour events. Highlights during this period include a second run to the semifinals in Washington, D.C. in 2014, and a second career final appearance at a main tour level event, the 250 Delray Beach Open, this time losing to Croatian 6'11" giant Ivo Karlovic in straight sets. New York fever once again came to a standstill at the 2015 US Open, as the now 68th ranked American earned a direct entry spot, with a first round face-off against 11th ranked Gilles Simon. Despite being 2 sets to love down, Donald came back to win in 5 sets in extraordinary fashion. A second round 4-set win against Slovakian Alias Bedene would set up a monumental clash against a red-hot Victor Troicki. And again, despite all odds in a 2-set deficit, the second set being 0-6, he did it again. Finding himself in the round of 16 in New York for the second time in his career, a clash, almost by destiny, was set up between him and former 2011 adversary Stan the Man Wawrinka. Despite the deafening stadium cheers of support and being at the top of his game, it would be the Swiss who got the better of him, beating Donald in a closely contested 4-set match. 2016 would continue a stream of steady, yet hardly remarkable, success on the ATP Tour, with his best result of the year being a semifinal appearance on grass at the Newport Hall of Fame tournament in Rhode Island. Approaching his 20s, Donald was proving himself as a sporadic, talented, temperamental, yet unwavering figure on the tour, with the coaching staff still only comprised of his immediate family who followed his every move. Literally, it's hard to judge whether a change of pace or changing coaching could have improved his results and altered his game for better or worse. The talent was undeniable, but he wasn't playing the same game of tennis that brought him so much success on the junior circuit. That being said, early 2017 would come bringing good tidings and the best results Donald had seen to date. Back-to-back semifinal appearances in 250 Memphis and 250 Delray Beach would be followed up by back-to-back round of 16 appearances at Masters 1000 events Indian Wells and Miami, an extremely strong showing for someone as previously inconsistent as Donald. Average results would round out the rest of the year, with a ranking of 42 in April of that year, bringing him the closest to his personal best of 38th in the world reached in 2012. As time would tell, unfortunately, that may as well be the closest he will ever get going forward. Despite his abysmal 2012 year and 2013 comeback year, Donald had managed to generally stay within the top 100 in rankings for almost 7 years to this point in time. His time, however, may have been running short. Poor showings in early 2018 tournaments proved harmful, and first-round losses at Masters events Indian Wells and Miami proved nuclear for his unstable ranking, dropping him out of the top 100 for the first time in years. Things didn't get much better as the year went on, with numerous first-round losses accumulating. By year end, Donald was back to solely playing challenger events with a ranking of 264, the lowest since his early teenage days. 2019 proved no better, with his only 2 tour-level matches coming in as losses. In fact, Donald failed to make a challenger tournament final the entire year, marking a severe dip in form for the not-so-young-anymore man. That brings us to today, where the former teenage phenom, once heralded as the next big thing for American tennis, sits at 257 in the ATP rankings at the age of 30 years old. It's hard to determine what exactly went wrong for Donald Young, and why he failed to live up to his potential, considering his stellar junior results. As mentioned, the answer may be found in his coaching staff, aka mom and dad. If professional tennis has taught us anything, it's that parents tend to not make the best coaches for matured professional tennis players, as seen by destruction caused by the parent coaches of Jelena Dokic and Bernard Tomic. Additionally, Donald's game of consistent counter-punching baseline play may work extremely well against younger, weaker juniors, but at the professional level, as we've seen, the great ones tend to have stronger weapons relied on to sweep their opponents off the court. It's hard to imagine a Roger Federer, who merely just gets the ball back, or a Rafael Nadal, who doesn't hit ungodly shots from the most unfathomable positions in the court. Maybe Donald may prove his doubters wrong and crack the top 20 before he hangs up his rackets for good. It's possible. The talent is certainly there, we'll see. Having passed the midpoint in his career, I'd like to say the eyes of the American nation are still upon him. But the question is to wonder, does anyone even care anymore?
Unbelievable rally. Points.
Best one we've seen today.
You son of a biscuit, man. Biscuit, man. Biscuit.
It's a key game, obviously.
I said, bitch, come on, Keith. Don't give me crap for that, man. Please, don't even give me crap for that.
It looks like...
I said, son of a biscuit. That's a problem? That's a problem now?
I believe that Young received a warning.